there, boys and girls.
Ladies and gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen.
And welcome to another episode of Shit Biden Says, which will bring you this week's lies, teleprompter slips, and tweets without context every week. And while I now have to censor the title unless I want to get restricted by YouTube, the internet powers that be can't stop Potato Joe from potatoing. Full disclosure, I thought that first one was a bad lip reading.
True international effort to pressure.
Until I looked it up. But you know what? Maybe it wasn't a gaffe at all, and Joe Biden is just so woke that he doesn't even acknowledge women anymore. Because after all, what is a woman anyway? Before we get into the rest of today's hell-in-a-handbasket of clips, today's video is brought to you by Zydax. Zydax specializes in gaming laptops, PCs, and workstations built for gamers by gamers. All parts and labor have a lifetime warranty and, my favorite part, they're all hand-built in Salt Lake City with 100% US-based tech support. To check them out and help the channel, use my link in the description and the pinned comment. First up, a leftover from last week that I somehow missed, when Joe Biden claimed there are 54 states.
Not a joke, everybody. That's why we were defeated in 2018 when they tried to do it. We went to 54 states.
He said it himself, folks. It's not a joke. You might think he's wrong or misspoke, but the truth is Biden knows better than you because he was a professor.
I spent more time with Xi Jinping of China than any world leader has. When I was vice president and when I was out of the office for 4 years when I was a professor and then now as president.
He was paid almost $1 million for the honorary role, which included about a dozen talks and never teaching a class ever. His tenure at UPenn has been debunked by even Snopes. He was, at best, 10% of a professor, which coincidentally is how much was set aside for the big guy in Hunter's business dealings with China. So maybe he shouldn't be bragging about all his time with Xi Jinping. Among Biden's other accomplishments that he lectured on this week was his meeting with the guy who invented insulin.
You know how much it costs to make that insulin drug for diabetes? Cost. It was invented by a man who did not patent it because he wanted it available for everyone. I spoke to him, okay?
Except insulin was discovered, not invented, which may be splitting hairs, but either way, it was patented, and the folks credited with the discovery either died before he was even born or before he made it into the Senate. So
I see dead people.
Biden also demonstrated his economic knowledge this week by first defining inflation. Sort of.
That's what I call inflation. At the end of the month, what you have left, you have no money, that's inflation. What are you, the things you need, are they going up? And they are. They are.
He also claimed that inflation is down and among the lowest in the world.
We have the lowest inflation rate of almost any major country in the world.
While also claiming inflation is due to the war in Iraq.
You know, we're dealing with it for a whole second. Inflation is a worldwide problem right now because of a war in Iraq and the impact on oil and what Russia's doing.
You see, he actually meant Ukraine and only had Iraq on the brain because that's where his son died.
The war in Ukraine, and thinking of Iraq because that's where my son died.
Iraq, in this case, is actually a nickname for Walter Reed in Bethesda, Maryland, where Beau Biden died 6 years after his military service. Of cancer. In a similar vein, the White House claims Social Security checks are at record highs. Woo! Which is true. Because inflation is at a record high despite Biden's claims. Twitter fact-checked them into oblivion, pointing out with a cute little fact-check banner that Social Security is tied to inflation by law, and that's why the checks are higher. The White House, in turn, deleted their tweet. Then they claimed they deleted it because they forgot to post context, and the context was those damn MAGA Republicans.
The tweet was not complete. Usually when we put out a tweet, we posted with context, and it did not have that context. We believe that if we want to lay our argument out fully, and that was important to do as we put out, information like that, or as we put out a tweet, and that was an incomplete tweet. So we do think it is important to do. And let's not forget, as you've been hearing me say for the past few minutes about MAGA Republicans in Congress and their continued threat to threaten Social Security and Medicare, proposing to put them on the chopping blocks.
Speaking of MAGA Republicans, Biden claimed in a speech this week that Trump called Paul Pelosi's attacker a patriot.
What do they call these guys? What does Trump and all his Trumpies call it? No, he said they're patriots. No, not a joke. These are patriots.
And finally, on Wednesday, Joe Biden gave a whole speech about how election deniers are a threat to democracy.
American democracy is under attack because the defeated former president of the United States refuses to accept the results of the 2020 election. He refuses to accept the will of the people. He refuses to accept the fact that he lost. The great irony about the 2020 election is that it's the most attacked election in our history. And yet, there's no election in our history that we can be more certain of its results.
While every establishment politician from Hillary Clinton to Biden himself claims that if Republicans win the midterms, it's due to election fraud.
You were asked whether or not you believed that we would have free and fair elections in 2022 if some of these state legislatures reformed their voting protocols. You said that it depends. Do you think that they would in any way be illegitimate?
Oh, yeah, I think it easily can be illegitimate.
Republicans know they can't win legitimately with their extremist policies. So they're doing everything they can to make sure only the votes they agree with will be counted.
And, spent the entirety of Trump's presidency claiming that he had somehow stolen the election. And today's last-minute edition, whatever this is.
At the time, Amy Barr was Chairman Barr of General Motors, was suing the state of California.
And misspeaking by an entire millennium?
Well, she left that meeting and she dropped the suit. Called me up and said they're going to go all electric by 2035.
That is the conclusion of this episode of Shit Biden Says. If you liked the video, give it a comment, a like, share it around because YouTube certainly doesn't like it. The last one, auto-demonetized and restricted. Don't forget to check out today's sponsor in the description and the pinned comment. And as always, thanks for tuning in, and I will see you in the next one.